asking a relatively small question that has actually huge ramifications. How did we get from a world, right, where religion dominated? We're going to use a $2 word here, called hegemony. How did we go from a world of religious hegemony to a world that is now, at least in this part of the world, largely secular hegemony? Say non-religious. Clarify this word hegemony. Which this is what the dominant belief is. The dominant ideology, the dominant way society gets structured. It actually just comes from it's an old Greek word that just means the one in charge. Now, when we say religious hegemony, what we're talking about is, in the pre-modern world, we're talking about religion dominated every aspect of life. From the time you were born, you were baptized, until you died, you're there at the funeral, weddings, everything. Every aspect of life was dominated in some sense by religion. Law was dominated by religion. Culture was dominated by religion. Language was dominated by religion. In the pre-modern world, so say the world prior to 1500 or so, that's the way everything was structured. You go to church, you want to learn to read, you learn to read the Bible, the Quran. It's true in the Arabic world as well. Now the question is, how did we go from a world in which religion dominated every aspect of life to now religion is simply one aspect of life, and maybe no aspect of life? In fact, this is so radical. I mean, a dollar bill with them. Look, you see the Great Seal of the United States, that big pyramid? There's a Latin phrase underneath it, Novus Ordo Seclorum. Bill means a new secular order, as opposed to an old. Yeah, it's weird, right? They only added that in the 1950s. The In God We Trust thing was only added in the 50s. And we'll talk about this more as we develop. But there has been a massive transition. For instance, let's say I go out in public and I ring a bell and say, God is not real. And guess what will happen to me legally? Nothing. Now, let's rewind to 1310, saying, Jesus is not real, this is all a hoax. My life is going to get real hard. And it will get real hard legally. I can be arrested for heresy and I can be tried for heresy or something, right? This transition, folks, is maybe one of the biggest transitions in human history. The transition from ordering the world along religious lines to no longer doing that. I mean, how many people here think that you should have the right to believe whatever you want to believe? That did not exist in the 1200s. You did not have a right to believe what you wanted to believe. If you believed the wrong thing, you could be killed. You could be killed. It's called heresy or bid'ah, right? And it can be bad for you. Bid'ah means innovation. The Arabic word for heresy. This is the transition we're going to be talking about. How did that happen? And the answer, we're going to see that the answer began to happen actually in the world of Ibn Rushd. So let's talk a little bit about how we got this hegemony to begin with. How did that happen? It actually has its roots way, way back in the Roman Empire. Now, in the Roman Empire, right, there was a tiny little group of people that lived in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they were weird, strange belief. Unlike everybody else in the Roman Empire, they believed that there was only one God. That God was invisible and only could be worshipped in one city, Jerusalem. Now, everybody else in the Roman Empire, as far as we can tell, believed there were lots of gods and they could be worshipped in any temple you wanted to go to. Not these people. These people were unusual. Those people were Jews. Their religion was unusual because it was monotheistic, but the laws they followed in their religion only pertained to them. That is to say, right, if you were Jewish, you believed that there was one God, that God was invisible, and you worshiped him in Jerusalem. 613 of these laws. Now, do you think the Jews care about whether or not the Romans are eating pork? No, because the laws only apply to them. What ends up happening is that one of these Jewish rabbis from the Galilee gets executed by the Romans, and his followers mutate Judaism. And they say not only is there one God, but our rabbi was in fact that God, and the law doesn't apply to just us, it applies to everybody. This is a huge change. We move from the direction of the one God, monotheism, but now it's no longer about a particular group of people. Now it's about everybody. We don't have to get into debates about law and theology and stuff. That's a hugely complicated mess. But notice this transition. When you go from one God who's particular to your group of people to a God that's now the God of everybody, the Christians also believed that their God was the only God. Now, if we all kind of believe in our own gods, generally speaking, I might think my gods are the best gods, but am I going to go bothering you about your gods? No. But if I believe my God is the only God, then what can I say about your beliefs? That you're wrong. This is a hugely decisive move. Because if you believe monotheism is in some sense inherently intolerant, there's a conflict that's going to begin to emerge. And that conflict is going to go like this. There are going to be the religious folks, the monotheists. They have to have faith. Now, there's another group of people in the world this time too, called the philosophers. And boy, are they irritating. Because guess what the philosophers spend all day doing? Asking questions. These people fundamentally do things through debate. But these are going to come into conflict with each other. And boy, do they. And you think about the Christian world. Either you're on team God or you're on team devil. I mean, that's the way it works, right? Either you're working for Allah or you're working for Iblis. This is the way things work. This is the logic of how this works. Because my job as a philosopher is to get you to question your ideas. And if faith saves you, well, then I'm trying to muck you up somehow. And this comes to a head in a big way. Just to give you some dates, from 325 Common Era, Christianity is legalized. Christianity becomes the dominant religion of the Roman Empire by Constantine. And then something decisive happens. In 529, the Emperor Justinian, who actually closed down the Academy. The Academy was the school established by Plato nearly 1,000 years before this. For all 800 years, the Academy had been a place for philosophers to come and talk about stuff, debate stuff. Justinian closed it down. If you got a bunch of philosophers standing around questioning things, the best that's going to happen is they're going to eventually find the right answer. But guess what? We already know the right answer. The answer to all these questions: where will the world come from? How old is the world? What's going to happen when you die? Blah, blah, blah. Go ask a priest, a bishop, or whatever. They will tell you the truth. These other people peddle in whatever. He closed the Academy down in 529. After 622, when another monotheistic religion will come roaring into existence. The prophet immigrates from Mecca to Medina, starting the Islamic period. Now, philosophers are not trying to shut you down, tell you what to believe, and the one thing you do is question things. Well, guess what? Now I can kill you. That'll make you be quiet. But just because they kill the philosophers, they just shut their school down. They leave. And they leave the world where Christianity is dominant, and they end up in what is now Syria. And Aleppo is where they end up. Now, Islam is going to swallow that whole region up, right? Islam is going to spread crazy fast all through the region. And what's going to end up happening is those philosophers end up in the Islamic world. And this debate keeps going. Do the philosophers know how to get the truth? Or should we rely on the revelation? And these don't work together. Because if I tell you that God spoke to me, and you have to believe what I say, and you're a philosopher, is it more likely that God spoke to you or that you're crazy? You'd be like, you're taking your medicine. Like, you have some questions, right? This is the natural comportment of philosophers. Reason and revelation, they don't sit comfortably with each other. Because revelation, if it comes from God, it can't be argued with. Because God is, well, God. If you have a revelation, I'm a philosopher, then I'm going to ask you questions. How do I know you're really telling the truth? How do I know you're not making this stuff up? You ever notice that Moses, Muhammad, Jesus, they all make rules that seem to benefit how great it is to be a dude. That seems conspicuous. You make all these rules up about how you get to be in charge. Sounds funny. This is the kind of things philosophers are going to wonder about. They think they're right. If you really believe Christianity is true, if you really believe Islam is true, if you really believe Judaism is true, whatever, then of course you take over. This is how you marry people. This is how you name children. This is how you do whatever. You control society because you think it's right. And that's not irrational or crazy. It makes total sense. No, we've structured society around the things we think are true. So again, when we look back to how this got established, we shouldn't be shocked that they did this. They did it because they thought they were right. You give rights to people because you think that you're right. Well, this will come in conflict. It comes in conflict with other kinds of theories of what's right. But this is how this religious hegemony develops, and it takes complete hold in Europe. This process takes time, but it does eventually happen. By the Middle Ages, it's total. In the year 1000, in anywhere near Europe or Africa or the Middle East, either you're living under one religious hegemony or the other. Either you're living under Christian hegemony or you're living under Muslim hegemony. I mean, it's a pretty powerful message, right? You ever thought about why Christianity spread so fast? 1/3 of the Roman Empire is slaves. Can you imagine someone coming into a room to a bunch of slaves saying, "Blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, and blessed are the humble. The last will be first, and the first will be last." You can imagine why this is so successful. This is a powerful message where it says, yeah, you're a slave in this life, but guess what? In the next life, you will be kings with God. There's all kinds of bad stuff in there too, which is not, religion's only as good as the people doing it. And let me tell you, every religion's capable of the most nightmarish horrors you can imagine. They're capable of the most wonderful good thing, because people are capable of these things. How did this begin to break itself up? How did we get from the dominance of this Christian business, the dominance of this Islamic business, to now we live, at least in the West, we live in a secular world, where religion is just one option. I'm free to do my religion, I'm free not to do my religion. And by the way, in this room, you have protections against my religion. So think about that. We go from, if you don't do what they say, you get killed, to now if they say, they get fired. That's a hell of a transition, folks. So how does this transition begin to happen? There's a lot of debate about it, where I want to begin to show how the chinks in this debate, it's actually part of the logic inside the religions themselves. And I think one of the core places where it begins is actually in Ibn Rushd. Let's talk a little bit about Ibn Rushd. This is what's going on in the Islamic world around the time that he's written this down. Inside of Islam, there is a fight that breaks out. I'm not going to bore you with all the names of all the different people that this fight's breaking out, but really the fight is between two groups of people. One group of people says, religion and reason can live in harmony. Group one. This people believe that you can use reason, logic, math, science, and religion. You can be a perfectly good Muslim and do science. You can be a perfectly good Muslim and do reason. They live together in harmony. So Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, lots of other people. These are names of philosophers, right, from this time period. They had extremists. Some of the more hardcore people believed, no, we should always only trust reason. Reason shows that religion's not true, or at least there's not good evidence for it. Or if you're going to believe in religion, the Bible says the world's 5,000 years old, 6,000 years, you got to go with that. Like Jesus says it, yeah, Muhammad says it, it's in the Quran, they're done. Yeah, so again, this debate's not going anywhere. People love to pretend we're so much better than the Middle Ages. We're so much smarter. Yeah, we're still doing the same stuff. Same problem, same kind of problem. There was another team, Group B, and really it's just one person. His position says that faith trumps reason, and that you simply cannot trust reason. You have to trust faith. And you trust faith in the form of experience. You have to have religious experience, and that will show you the truth of things. This guy's name was Al-Ghazali. And the book is called Abu Hamid. Now, Al-Ghazali, he died in 1111. He started off as a philosopher, wrote books in philosophy, wrote books in science. Ghazali's a super smart guy. And then he had a mystical experience, experienced God directly. He said, yes, reason is okay, but experience tells me the truth about reality. Or not true. I can use philosophy to undo philosophy. That is to say, you can argue one side of things, and you can argue the other side of things, and you don't know the answer. If you want to know the answer, Ghazali says, you need to go and try to find God, God's self. Find Allah and experience Allah, and you don't need to worry about questions anymore. Now, he doesn't say be unreasonable, but he says ultimately this is pales in comparison. And he wrote a book called The Tahafut al-Falsifa, the stumbling of the philosophers. Sometimes the incoherence of the philosophers. In which he showed, I can argue for both sides of these issues, and I can show you that the philosophers they don't figure out anything. They just talk random stuff. You can't know who's right, so what should you do? Trust in Allah. This book was incredibly popular. Al-Ghazali says, stop. You can't know the answer. Because there's only one entity that knows the answer to that question. That entity, of course, is God. Go find God. It's still popular. And what ends up happening in the Islamic world with the death of Al-Ghazali in 1111 is that increasingly people begin to turn their backs on the philosophers. They begin to say, these philosophers are dangerous. And I think that's still a belief people have about philosophy. They ask questions and pester people. They ask what is difficult, you've got these philosophers out there being like, well, maybe there's more than two genders. And people are like, man, we had this gender thing figured out for 2,000 years, and now you philosophers are inventing genders and stuff. Again, that's what philosophers do. We take conservative ideas and we go, maybe not. You have to believe it because it's tradition. Tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. And what did your mom say about peer pressure? We believed it long enough, so long we can keep believing it. You can see how this is going to grate up against these religious people. How many people here have had to ask tough questions philosophically about their religious upbringing? Yeah. And you can get shut down for that? Told you're going to go to hell or something? Yeah. It can be bad. This can be bad. This situation has not fundamentally changed in some sense. After Al-Ghazali dies in 1111, many philosophers now begin to realize the gig's up. We might be in bad shape, folks. Because in the Christian world, there's definitely no chance for us. By 1111, the same is going to begin happening in the Muslim world. This reaction troubles philosophers. And one of the philosophers that it really troubled was Ibn Rushd. Ibn Rushd lived in what is now Spain. Right? Spain at that time was controlled by the Muslims, the Almohads. He lived just about 100 years after Al-Ghazali. Ibn Rushd looks at the situation and asks himself, again, team harmony. How can we play such that religion and reason can work together? Ibn Rushd was the best situated person to do this. He is a judge, and not just a judge, he is the most powerful judge in Spain. The question, What is the legal position about philosophy? Should you have to do it? Can you do it? Should you not do it? And if you do it, can you get punished? Those are his options. Because he thinks he's going to pass this ruling called fatwa, and he thinks he's going to defeat al-Ghazali. He fails, miserably, by the way. So he's really trying to open this up for philosophy. Ibn Rushd knows his position. Now what's going to happen, as we're going to see, he's going to open up a chink in this idea of religious hegemony. It's going to grow and grow and grow until eventually religion and government separate. Ideas don't drop out of the sky. They have times and places and people that write them. They write them for specific reasons. Again, we should cultivate a sense of humility about our own beliefs. Because you look at someone like Ibn Rushd has written some amazing things, or Thomas Aquinas, whatever, you're like, that should give you a sense of humility, but also a great sense of awe of what we're capable of in terms of like thought. What is the ultimate legal position he comes to? He takes the most extreme position in terms of that philosophy is an obligation if you are a Muslim. He says, right, and this is the position he comes to, we'll unpack it more, you should study philosophy if you're a Muslim, but only if you're capable of it. If you're just a regular person, you should not study it. In fact, philosophers should hide it from regular people. Why? They'll end up becoming heretics. They'll end up making religious mistakes. It's a bit of an elitist, right? We should be honest.